Alright, let's get one thing straight. When Anitta shows up somewhere, people notice. But this time, it wasn't for a red carpet, a viral dance, or a new music drop. Nope, this time, it was for something a whole lot deeper. Her participation in the sacred Kuarup ceremony in Brazil's Xingu indigenous territory. And yes, social media exploded with reactions, photos, memes, and opinions. A lot of the conversation was about her appearance, particularly her body. But what really matters here is the why behind her visit and the cultural moment that was unfolding. Anitta wasn't just there to pose for pictures. She was stepping into a centuries-old indigenous tradition with respect, openness, and a willingness to learn. So let's talk about what really happened, why it matters, and what the internet got right and maybe got wrong about it. We've seen a shift in how celebrities engage with indigenous culture in recent years. Some have done it clumsily, wearing war bonnets at festivals, using tribal imagery as fashion. Others, like Anitta, are setting a new example. They're not dropping in to borrow culture. They're stepping in to learn. That's a huge difference. When you show up with humility, when you're invited in, when you listen more than you speak, that's cultural exchange, not exploitation. And it's moments like these that show us what allyship can actually look like in the real world. Not hashtags, not performative posts, but real presence, real respect. It's also worth pointing out that Anitta didn't flood her own social media with this event. The coverage came from local journalists, community leaders, and fans. That silence is powerful. It shows this wasn't a PR play. It was a human experience. In an era where everything is curated for engagement, there's something refreshing about a celeb doing something not for likes, but because it's the right thing to do. And while her team may eventually release a behind-the-scenes look or segment from the TV special, the tone has already been set. This was about amplifying indigenous voices, not drowning them out. So where does this moment sit in the broader picture of Anitta's career? Honestly, it elevates her. Not because she did something flashy, but because she did something real. In a world where fame often feels shallow, this showed depth. It showed she's using her voice to make space for others. That doesn't mean she's perfect or immune from critique, but it does mean she's trying. And when a global pop star helps people Google Kuarup for the first time, or teaches fans the name of the Kuarup people, that matters. That's culture in action. That's using celebrity not as a spotlight, but as a mirror reflecting something deeper. At the end of the day, Anitta's appearance at the Kuarup will mean different things to different people. For some, it's just another celebrity moment. For others, it's a gateway into indigenous culture, history, and pride. And for the Kuarup people who welcomed her, it's a gesture of solidarity that the world got to witness. But maybe the most important takeaway is this. The moment wasn't about Anitta. It was about the Kuarup, about honoring the past, about keeping traditions alive. If we focus, the Kuarup is no ordinary ceremony held by various indigenous communities of the Xingu region in Brazil. It's a deeply spiritual ritual that honors the dead and celebrates life. It's not about performance. It's not about publicity. It's about connection, respect, and remembrance. Anitta took part in this powerful event alongside Brazilian TV host Luciano Huck for a special program. But unlike many celebrity appearances, this wasn't a flashy cameo. The vibe was reverent. She was seen receiving sacred body paint and wearing traditional red leg bands, symbols of her participation in the ritual. Videos and photos captured her silently observing and following the lead of the Kuarup community members. And to her credit, she didn't center herself in the moment. She let the culture lead. Of course, social media being social media, attention quickly shifted to, well, Anitta's butt. Let's not pretend that didn't happen. Photos of her standing barefoot in traditional paint and minimal clothing lit up platforms like X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Comments ranged from admiration to objectification to pure disbelief. It's a weird blend of reactions. People praising her for cultural sensitivity while also obsessing over her physical appearance. But this isn't new for Anitta. As a pop star, her body has always been a topic, sometimes by her own design, sometimes not. What's interesting here is that she brought that body and all the attention it draws into a setting that's not about showbiz, but sacred tradition. That tension is exactly what makes this moment worth unpacking. Now, let's look at intent. Anitta wasn't in Xingu to promote a new album or launch a brand. She was there as part of a televised special aiming to spotlight indigenous voices, history, and rights. And if you know anything about her career, you know she's not afraid to use her platform for causes that matter. LGBTQ+ rights, racial equality, and yes, indigenous sovereignty. In interviews, she's been clear. Fame means nothing if you're not using it to lift others up. So her appearance at Kuarup wasn't about grabbing headlines. It was about drawing attention to people who are often ignored. She used her presence, her reach, and yes, her viral power to spotlight something bigger than herself. And honestly, that's rare, especially in today's celebrity ecosystem. Now, let's look at intent. Anitta wasn't in Xingu to promote a new album or launch a brand. She was there as part of a televised special aiming to spotlight indigenous voices, history, and rights. And if you know anything about her career, you know she's not afraid to use her platform for causes that matter. LGBTQ+ rights, racial equality, and yes, indigenous sovereignty. In interviews, she's been clear. Fame means nothing if you're not using it to lift others up. So her appearance at Kuarup wasn't about grabbing headlines. It was about drawing attention to people who are often ignored. She used her presence, her reach, and yes, her viral power to spotlight something bigger than herself. And honestly, that's rare, especially in today's celebrity ecosystem. Let's talk about cultural respect. Whenever a celebrity steps into a tradition that's not their own, the risk of appropriation is real. But what we saw in this case was the opposite. Anitta didn't treat the Kuarup as a costume party. She followed protocol. She listened. She showed humility. Indigenous leaders from the Kuarup community welcomed her participation, and that's crucial. Cultural appreciation happens when there's consent, context, and mutual respect. Everything we saw suggests that Anitta approached this experience thoughtfully and with care, and the way she engaged, quietly, without making it about her fame, helped shift the online conversation from, "Is this a PR stunt?" to "Wow, this was actually meaningful." But let's be real. Online reactions were still mixed. Some fans were inspired, calling her brave and respectful. Others felt the media coverage leaned too heavily on her body, missing the cultural point. And some critics questioned whether her presence, no matter how respectful, overshadowed the ceremony itself. These are valid conversations. It's not about canceling anyone. It's about asking deeper questions. How do celebrities engage with sacred spaces? How do we, as viewers, balance admiration with accountability? And most importantly, are we paying enough attention to the actual message the indigenous community is trying to share? Or are we just talking about a celebrity again? Let's zoom in on what the Kuarup actually represents. This ritual is about remembering those who've passed on. It's an emotional, community-driven event filled with dance, song, and symbolic acts that connect the living to their ancestors. It's deeply spiritual and not open to just anyone. That Anitta was invited to participate is meaningful. It says a lot about how she's viewed by these communities, not just as a star, but as someone who listens, respects, and learns. During the ceremony, her role was small, but her platform is massive. And by choosing to share this experience, she turned millions of eyes toward a culture most of her audience has likely never seen before. We also have to talk about the impact. Since the video went viral, Google searches for Kuarup, people, and Xingu have spiked globally. That's not an accident. That's influence. And that's where celebrity power can do real good. This wasn't just a performance. It was a moment of education. Indigenous leaders have long fought to keep their cultures alive in the face of colonialism, land destruction, and political neglect. Now, thanks to one viral moment, their traditions are being discussed at kitchen tables, in schools, and on social feeds around the world. Anitta may have started the conversation, but the message is indigenous. Another layer here is body politics. Anitta's body has always been central to her public image, by choice. She owns it. She flaunts it. She's made it part of her brand. So when she appeared at a spiritual ceremony dressed in traditional wear, the visual impact was always going to be intense. But here's the nuance. This wasn't sexualized. It wasn't designed for the male gaze. It was traditional, ceremonial, and sacred. The way the internet responded, focusing first on the physical, then the cultural, says more about us than it does about her. And in some ways, that reaction proves how badly we need more of these culture-shifting moments to challenge our assumptions on the celebrity and miss the ceremony. We've missed the point. Let this moment be a reminder to look deeper, listen harder, and honor the cultures that keep our world rich and human.